There we go.
And we're there, yes.
The buffer wheel's still buffering a little bit, but here we are.
Joe Chaffee, Fios One News, New Jersey, and Fios One News, Long Island.
And Joe Rayo, Fios One News, Lower Hudson Valley.
Well, it's Wednesday. We're halfway through.
Yep.
We've got a couple of dry days. Then we've got this wind and rain thing for Friday night into Saturday. And, you know, I'm looking at this, Joe, and I'm kind of thinking it's not going to be anything too crazy or too outrageous. No. There'll be some rain along the coast. There'll be some winds. I think there'll be one high tide cycle early Saturday morning that might be a bit problematic because it's coming off the full moon tonight. But other than that, I think it should be manageable.
The fact is that the gradient will be at its tightest from the east-northeast, probably Friday night. The high still to our north. The storm, excuse me, coming up from the south. By the time we get to Saturday afternoon, and especially Saturday night, the center of the low-pressure system will be near to us, and that will act as kind of like, in a way, like the eye of a hurricane. I'm not saying hurricane-force winds. I'm not suggesting that, but I'm just saying that when we talk about the eye of the hurricane, we talk about winds that drop off very quickly when you're near and just inside the eye. In this case, with the center of low pressure near to us on Saturday afternoon, evening, and into Saturday night, the winds, the gradient will be not as tight, not as strong as what we may see Friday night and Saturday morning. So, Joe, I would agree with you. I think if we do see any kind of coastal flooding or even beach erosion problems along the Jersey Shore or the South Shore of Long Island, it would probably be targeting Friday night and Saturday morning. And I would suspect, again, only about one cycle, one tide cycle, because things will kind of diminish a bit wind-wise later Saturday.
And it's not like we're sitting for 2 or 3 days with persistent northeast winds where the water just keeps piling on. This is really just going to pretty much flip a switch Friday afternoon and then move through Friday night into Saturday morning, and then I think then the switch gets flipped the other way late in the day. I'm kind of optimistic for Sunday in the sense that no rain and that there'll be maybe some brightening of skies or some breaks of sun in there.
Well, I'm at this point, and of course I could very well change my mind tomorrow or on Friday, but right now it looks to me that Sunday, if there is any sunshine, it's going to be very, very limited. Brightening of the skies, yeah, I could see something like that, but I could see mostly an overcast day. But also, I think more dry than anything else. There may be some leftover shower activity, maybe early on Sunday or around daybreak on Sunday, but much of Sunday turning out dry. And then when we get into Monday, there's kind of a backlash effect, and we may pick up a couple of showers.
Yeah, because there's another system, the upper trough, the next upper trough swings out.
Later Monday and Monday night.
Jared Christensen leaving on a cruise Saturday afternoon out of Jersey. Yeah, it's going to get rough for a little while as you're going out.
Remember
folks.
This one word, Dramamine. Yeah, you're going to, even though these, you didn't say how big the cruise ship is, but a lot of these big cruise ships now have stabilizers. They're much better than they were, let's say, even 10 or 15 years ago. But still, you ought to,
I don't do cruise ships.
Pitching up and down or whatever like that, you might want to carry along.
Timothy Veltman, before we get into the weather, Timothy Veltman wants to know how did you make out with your tree crew?
Not yet. They're coming on Friday. This is Robert Lucier. If any of you are in the vicinity of Putnam Valley, he is our local tree guy. We've had him for a number of years, and he is coming first thing in the morning on Friday. Sadly, if I wouldn't be I wouldn't be ashamed to shed a couple of tears, because these were two majestic oak trees that met their fate due to a gypsy moth invasion that we had a couple of years ago, last 2 years actually, and we weren't fast enough on the gun with the insecticide and whatever to try to keep them away. That, and also there's a hickory tree that I had. A big limb just fell off of that, and Bob looked at that and said, this ought to go as well. I'm only doing it because we get into the winter, Joe. Already, every time we have a strong, windy day, case in point what we'll see Friday night and Saturday, I go to my lawn the next day, and there are tree limbs or tree branches all over the place, and simply, with the proximity of one of those oak trees near to my house, I just can't play it. I just can't assume that the tree is not going to come down or fall in our vicinity, so we just have to get rid of them. Sad but true.
Bill McGowan asks a question that I can give a quick answer to about the hurricane in the Pacific with 180-mile-an-hour winds and gusts of 210. And that hurricane is, and we'll bring it up as we've got a really good-looking loop thanks to tropicaltidbits.com. Let me just get that going here. Where is it? I'm not gonna have. Oh, there it is. It's up in the upper corner. You're going to see double us here for a second. This is, Joe, it's Typhoon U2.
U2?
U2.
Or YouTube?
No, or U2, Me Too. It's U2. And it actually crossed, these are the, this is in the east, this is in the Central Pacific, west of the dateline, but not very far west of the dateline. The Mariana Islands. This crossed the island of Tristan or I forget now, and Saipan.
Okay.
That if you look where the I is, maybe it's Trinian and Saipan. But you see those two tiny little islands there. The I moved right over both of them.
Oh my goodness!
And the lowest pressure at the time was 904 millibars, and they were carrying 150 knots. So that's 175, 180 mile an hour winds.
Wow.
Just an incredible looking typhoon here. Looks like a buzzsaw.
Now this storm was at one time in the early stages under the jurisdiction of the Central Pacific.
No, this actually formed west of the dateline, so
okay.
it never really was on.
Honolulu never had any.
No, they never touched it.
Okay,
and
I'm sure they're happy they didn't have to.
Right, and I without showing the map of it, the models with this, because someone else on my YouTube channel asked me a good question, which was the fact that sometimes these typhoons, when they move further west and then they recurve and they head up northeast,
saying the weather.
Yeah, they just started the chain effect of things happening down the road. This one looks like it may just get left behind, moving westward, and then it kind of gets picked up by a trough, but then it sort of gets left back. I'm not overly bullish on this having any kind of longer term impact with the systems up north, which is what we would have to rely on.
So this does not get the Chiaffi stamp of fascinating.
No, it really doesn't. No,
Okay.
It's not overly fascinating. So let's jump to. I'm going to use the close-up map with respect to the next system here, and we can use the GFS. It's as good as any.
I will say, based upon what we were talking about a day or two ago about the confusion about the estimated time of arrival.
Right, which now the GFS has come around to being
right.
on the same speed as the NAM and the European,
right.
which looks like sometime Friday, after sunset.
I said for the Hudson Valley now, 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock, the first raindrops beginning to fall. And
well, this is 8 o'clock, so.
Yeah. So
which has it, just about getting close to Route 78 in New Jersey,
right.
And then by 1 a.m. By 2 a.m. it's well into the lower Hudson Valley, into Connecticut, Long Island, and there's your low. One of the reasons why, among other things, even though the gradient is very tight, but one of the things that doesn't happen with this low is that it doesn't strengthen as it moves northward. It actually kind of peaks in strength during early Saturday morning, so pressures really don't change very much.
Now that's a pretty tight gradient.
Yeah,
right
it's
there.
a tight gradient here Saturday morning. It's a 97 low, but that's as strong as it gets, because after that it just starts to weaken and moves.
Right, and you can see what I was talking about a few minutes ago. As the center of the storm gets closer, the tight gradient, which is appearing on maps in the morning, begins to relax as we get into the afternoon and early evening. And, and now the storm is right on top of us. It's kind of amazing. People, when they hear like, oh, the storm's going to be on top of us, that's going to be when it's worse. No, the storm's on top of you. The winds are actually
the
much
gradient's
less.
done. Yeah. And because the system actually keeps weakening as it moves to the north, this is why I'm a little more, a little bit optimistic, slightly optimistic for Sunday, with some brightening of skies or maybe a break or two here and there. The wind does go around to northwest. Should be a little bit of drying, not a whole lot though, because you don't have a really good push of dry air coming in from behind all
Right,
this.
but the one good thing about Sunday,
Doesn't look like any rain.
Yeah, I mean, if we had that persistent onshore flow, then we would probably have spotty areas of mist or drizzle.
Yeah, that doesn't look to be
That does not look to be. As the winds swing around over to the northwest, that should at least preclude any kind of wetness on Sunday, much of the day on Sunday. So.
Totally agreed on that. And then, you know, this upper trough, part of it lifts up, got another arm that's coming around, and this is what we were talking about. By the way, if you look on the lower right, Joe, that is the Hurricane Center actually just raised on their latest forecast, and we'll bring that up here. Hang on a second. On their latest forecast, out in the Atlantic here, this area of disturbed weather, that they're now, they brought it up to 70%, so they got it into red. The models, a lot of the models do develop this system, and as the GFS kind of shows it, and the European has it, they all do. You know, there's probably that looks like a little tropical storm there that is at around 28.5 and about 61 on Monday. I think it's Otis, I believe.
Otis.
And then it just gets absorbed with all this trough coming off the East Coast. It just gets absorbed and lifted out to the Northeast, never to be heard from again.
Yes.
And I was looking at the longer range, Joe. We're going into the sorry about that. We're going into the beginning of November, and it looks to me, there's a lot of amplitude here with these troughs and ridges, and I mean, it looks like we're going to get weather systems coming through on a regular basis. No big ridge in the east, and there's a look of blockiness to this as we move into the first week of November or so, with higher pressures building up in northeastern Canada on up toward Greenland. We'll see if that winds up doing anything other than making it colder than normal. But I kind of look at this whole flavor of everything, and it looks sort of like we're in some kind of long-term transition. Where we're going to wind up, I don't know, but that's sort of how I see it.
Well, September was so very warm here in the east and so very cold in the west. Everything is kind of flip-flopped now, and as we move into November, I think it's kind of a pattern that we're in flux. You really can't tell. It looks like we may actually kick off November here in this part of the country on a mild note, and then all of a sudden the bottom falls out of the thermometer again sometime around or soon after Election Day. So, and everything is moving very rapidly. There's nothing that seems stagnant. So, quick changes from one day to another or 1 week to another. We'll see how this all plays out. And we're only at the beginning.
Right. Christine Pepe, this is new. She's having a pig roast on Saturday in Keansburg. What should you do? What time is this so-called pig roast, Christine? And where is Keansburg?
Isn't that? Am I thinking about there was an amusement park? Was that in New Jersey, Keansburg?
Well, you know what? I don't know.
I remember they used to have a commercial. It's in my head. Come out to Keansburg. Well, maybe it's not the same place.
I'm going to guess New Jersey. Well, there's an something that looks like an amusement park.
Yeah. Then that's the amusement park.
All right, so this is like at Union Beach, Raritan Bay. Well, look, if you're, I'll say this: if your pig roast is late in the afternoon and into early evening, you might just be able to get away with it, because by then the system will be well to your north and the winds would have died down considerably.
Right.
But you know what? I'd certainly pay attention to the forecast going forward.
Otherwise, the pig is going to get a thorough basting in the morning.
Well, that's true.
If it's a lunchtime event or late morning, it is going to be a little bit on the wet side.
Bill Holcomb says hi. Jason Schaefer, the Mariana Islands. Let's see, Jason Kaplan. Will coastal flooding be worse since the storm comes in earlier? One high tide cycle, I think, Jason, the high tide cycle that comes early Saturday morning, I think that's the only high tide cycle where there could be a risk of minor to maybe some pockets of moderate coastal flooding. Again, the thing that really keeps this from being anything more serious is the fact that you just don't have days of northeast winds. Right. As we got the full moon. Look, if we were going to have northeast winds tomorrow and Friday, then I would say, probably the coastal flooding would be more than just one tide cycle. But because that's not really the case, and you're going to have the winds turning into the northeast and east during Friday afternoon, I mean, that's really just not enough time. So it's the one tide cycle that I think is problematic, and that should be about it. Just trying to get to see if there's any, is Long Island a washout Saturday? Asked Justin. Well, I think at least into the early part of the afternoon, and after that it should start to slowly get better. But I mean, from the standpoint of the day itself, it's probably not the better of the 2 weekend days.
RAV, rent a video.
Right. I think Sunday is definitely the better of the 2 days. Corey Bodziak, cheap real estate on those two islands. I hope everyone was evacuated. Honestly, Corey, I looked. I
evacuate to where?
Yeah, I know. That's one thing. Those are, by the way, that's a U.S. Commonwealth, by the way. I was looking around for information for news stories. There was not that much on Google when I checked it out late this afternoon. There just wasn't a whole lot of information about it out there. I did happen to find one of those live video cameras from one of the islands, and it was still working. The problem was that it was nighttime and it was raining so hard you really couldn't see anything.
Did they have an American flag?
No, you couldn't see. You could actually see the rain along on the camera lens, but the visibility was almost zero. The center of the storm went right over that particular island, so I must have pulled the camera up just as the eye was getting extremely close.
Right.
So let's see. What is Sussex? Dominic Braccio. What is Sussex County looking at as far as wind and rain Saturday? Not so much wind for you. Rainfall amounts probably. I kind of think, Joe, I was thinking along the lines of 1 to 2 inches of rain overall. I didn't think that was outrageous.
And
1.5, some local amounts to 2.
We're talking about well inland. Not that it's not going to be there'll probably be a gusty breeze, but I mean, we're talking about the full force of 40 or maybe even 50 mile per hour winds right along the coastline. As you go inland, frictional drag will kind of cause the winds to diminish somewhat, but it'll still be a fairly breezy day. And I would agree with you on the amount of rain. Maybe a couple of inches closer to the storm track, and maybe a little bit less as you go away from the storm track.
So Joe Morinesso, like you said, an inch and a half, some local amounts a little higher. And Sunday, I think is going to be the better of the 2 weekend days. So we should be okay.
See, I don't feel it. This is great. It's a significant storm, but I really don't feel much in the way of pressure. Now, if this were somehow a tropical system, a tropical cyclone, and still had a name to it, everybody would go every which direction, like, Congolia's coming, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, they would have us here. And every news outlet would be going crazy at this point because it simply had a name. Or in another couple of months, if this was a snow event, not a rain event, then they would be going crazy too. But
which reminds me, I don't understand, Joe. Like a couple of days ago, there was maybe frenzy's a strong word, but there was some social media excitement over this, and I'm not sure. I was trying to grasp that to understand why.
Because I think some forecasters were saying that this was going to be a part of former tropical or Hurricane Willa, and giving the.
Well, I'm even also talking about the snow angle out of this.
Oh, the snow angle,
which never, it just never really was there for here. I mean, you and I we were talking, in the office briefly about it. It just wasn't really worth spending a lot of time on it.
Well, even the National Weather Service earlier in the week on their technical discussion, their forecast discussion, was suggesting that possibly there might be some wet snow in the higher terrain areas with this system, maybe Friday night or Saturday, but they never mentioned anything about accumulations, and maybe because of the time of the month, the calendar, and people remembering back to 2011.
Yeah, but that 2011 was a totally different thing.
Situation. That's correct. But I feel it's kind of strange because this is if you have to have any kind of a significant storm like this, there's not much in the way of pressure here. I mean, there's one tide cycle, but we don't have all of the hullabaloo of a potential tropical system or a former tropical system or an impending snowstorm.
And it was also the first non-tropical low up the coast for a while, so we had to, basically, what's the phrase I'm looking for? The first one of the season. It's always you're a little sloppy. It's like the first football game, of the season when the pros come out after only a couple of preseasons. You're a little rusty. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just do a little shameless self-promotion. Because it looks like I will be in New Jersey again.
Oh, okay.
Yes, indeed, I will be in Jersey again. It will be the day after Election Day, so that's Wednesday, November 7th at 7 o'clock, and I will be at the Bayonne Library, which is in
New Jersey.
In Bayonne, New Jersey.
And
I think it's a new. My understanding is it's a brand new library, so I am going to be the christening act.
Oh.
Okay. So this is at 7 o'clock on Wednesday, November 7th. And we'll talk more about that as we get closer to it, of course. And if you want to mark your calendars down for a little longer term, I'm going to be at the Babylon Library in Babylon on Long Island.
Long Island.
Right. On
Wednesday,
December the 12th. Okay, at 7 p.m. So just mark those 2 dates down and come on out. We have a lot of fun at these talks. And the Jersey one, this is my second Jersey one in less than 3 weeks. So anybody, if you're interested, to let your local library know that we're available and we can. I'm going to be soloing, but if you want both of us out there, it would have to be on a weekend. But let your library know to get in touch with us. And we'll see if we can put a date together.
Okay.
All right.
That'd be fun.
In the meantime, more weather posts on the Patreon platform. I threw the links up there on the chat for those of you who are interested, so take a look at it. And also you can go to my website, meteorologistjoechaffee.com. And trying to think, tomorrow
is
Thursday. So there'll be a Patreon live stream tomorrow morning at 9:30 for the Patreon members, or as my friend Phil calls them, the Patriots. And YouTube live stream tomorrow night, either at 6 o'clock or at 7 o'clock. So just watch for me. I usually schedule it and put a post up.
Are we going to break the news now or wait until Friday about what's going to happen next week?
Oh, well, I'm taking some time off. And so the Joe and Joe show may be on hiatus unless it's up to you.
Yeah.
Okay, unless it's up to you. I can show you how to do this so that you can load me up.
If you write it all down,
okay.
I can just follow the instructions point by point.
All right.
I'm a very good.
All right, so I will look. Let's compromise. I will write it all down, and I will show you how to set up. It's really easy. Once you do it once, you're fine.
Right.
And there's one other thing you got to do, and I'll tell you about it off camera. So we'll give it a whirl. So if that's the case, maybe we can try to do something together. In the meantime, you have to go because you got to go at the top of the hour at FiOS 1 News Lower Hudson Valley.
And you have to take care of FiOS 1 News Long Island and FiOS 1 News New Jersey. Tell everybody how nice it'll be tomorrow and how it will be clouding up on Friday, and then
we'll get what we get Friday night and Saturday.
Right.
All right. Have a great night, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.